I decided I was going to do something a little different from what I've been doing. I've been sort of talking about Mark, and I've enjoyed that actually um, for Saturday mornings. But I think I'm going to go a little bit off the page here a little bit, just talk about some things I encountered today that I've been thinking about, and they're still brimming in my mind. So this might just end up being a stream of consciousness more than like a point, you know. But I think it should be interesting. And I'm going to boil this down to the best of my ability as being about the importance of having good biblical doctrine, having right doctrine. I was looking at Jesus in the Beatitudes in Matthew, and how he was talking about how the seeds that were planted, some will appear to be good, but then won't be. There'll be something that messes things up. I think it's Matthew 7. And after that, he does go into some wisdom sayings about what the right thing to do is, how to behave. And when we talk about things held in tension, we say, okay, two things are true that we can't quite resolve. So they hold each other in tension. So in a sense, so for example, you're saved by grace through faith. But does that mean God isn't interested in what you do anymore? Well, of course not, right? But we're not saying you're saved by works, and yet works are really important. And it's fascinating because there's many ways in which this is important. For example, in the Old Testament wisdom writings, what you do is extremely important. They may have a contract with God to do certain things that they know God's going to pull through on, but they still act in accordance with the wisdom writings. Jesus, same thing in the Beatitudes. It's important to acknowledge who he is and what he's doing. And at the same time, it's important to live out the faith he's delivered to you. I think this is good. This is an example of doctrine leading to good behavior. That you live in accordance with the wisdom writings. If you want to know whether you're living in accordance with the wisdom writings, by the way, as a general principle, if you're being foolish, you'll pay a price. Just the way God has constructed the world will cause you to pay a price. As Romans says, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven. You'll just see it. You'll see that you're not living in accordance with the wisdom writings. And a Christian has been empowered to do so. Okay? Now, another way in which doctrine is important, this is where I maybe just have two thoughts that I'm trying to merge. I'll see if I can shoehorn them in here as an experiment. But I was listening to two philosophers debate on the Unbelievable podcast with Justin Briley. Very good podcast. It was Daniel Dennett, and I don't know the other philosopher's name, but they were debating philosophy of mind from an atheist materialist point of view and from a Christian point of view. And I noticed that Daniel Dennett kept saying things like, on the one hand, when he basically says that the brain and the mind are synonymous, they're the same thing. And the brain and the mind are the same thing. And any time the Christian would say something like, something was meaningful. Daniel Dennett was not rude. He's never rude. He seems very honest to me. He's one of the better atheists to listen to. But he would call him out, and he's like, well, that's no big deal if it's meaningful to you or not. But why does that matter? But he kept saying, well, that's the brilliance of Darwinism. That's the brilliance of Darwinism. And I wished Robert Oddie had been there. Robert Oddie is an epistemologist. And he would have said, I think it would have been fun to watch him pretend like he was what's called a adverbial phenomenalist, which is they believe that your language ought to reflect your meaning. So for him to say, it's the brilliance of Darwinism. What he actually should have said is, Darwinism is appearing to me brilliantly. Now, you may think that sounds like fiddlesticks, fiddling with words, or splitting hairs. Well, that's what a lot of philosophy is. But it would have been a good point for the Christian to bring up. Why is it okay to critique the Christian for thinking something's meaningful, and but the atheist to turn around and say something's brilliant? No. If we have to be consistent with our words, you have to be consistent with yours. It's not brilliant, it's appearing to you to be brilliant. I guarantee you he would have said the Christian was splitting hairs there. And I would have said, no, I'm asking for you to be consistent. It's special pleading for you to say that meaningfulness is not actually meaningful. Well, brilliance isn't really brilliance, is it? You think about what I'm doing, what I would be doing here. The effort would be to undercut this superficial doctrine that many atheists have, which is, to be religious in this day and age, you just got to be stupid. There's only a few views that I think, if you hold the view, I'm not going to bother debating you on it. I'll just let the blind lead the blind into a pit. It doesn't mean I think you're stupid, but that's feminism and contrarians. I'll just let them believe what they believe. It doesn't matter. Contrarians don't believe anything anyway. Like the opposite of wisdom. The opposite of having good doctrine. That's for another day. They don't have doctrine. They just disagree. But listening to these two philosophers debate was so interesting because they just kept saying what their positions were. And I kept listening to this going, I apologize if the camera's shaking really bad. I'm trying to get better with that. It was like being at an all-you-can-eat buffet and debating what you're going to eat. Well, I'm going to eat scallops. Well, you shouldn't eat scallops because I'm going to eat pizza rolls. Well, I'm going to eat meatballs. But, it just, who cares? Okay, you have positions. They were never offering defeaters, which is to say anything that really attacked the view. In fact, the debate really didn't get interesting until Bennett started kind of attacking religion. I was like, thank goodness, let's get to something good here. Like, I don't even care that I disagree with them at this point. I just want to hear a debate here. So, I may get interrupted here. So it was really interesting to hear them discuss this point. But it got me thinking about this. They were trying to ask the question, at what point does it stop becoming your brain and start becoming your mind? That's what the Christian was trying to do. And Dennett was trying to make the point that your brain and your mind are the same thing, but there's no way to justify that. And I was thinking about a picosecond. A picosecond is the shortest, as far as I know, the shortest measurable moment of time. And there's a question in temporal mechanics, when does a moment become the present? How long is that period? We don't know. And we may never know. Why is there something rather than nothing? You look at the universe, you don't know. And we may never know. Those are good questions to ask and think about from time to time. And then you close the book for many years, and on occasion open the door, see if anyone's got any good ideas. And then there are questions, again, that aren't worth asking, like feminism and contrarians. But these sort of, this question they kept asking, all they could do was just offer their views. There was very little interaction. And what I kept thinking was, this is where I'm going to kind of shoehorn this in, but I'm really not. It applies. It's important that we have good doctrine. It's important that we have good doctrine. I have answers to these questions. Why is there something rather than nothing? Because there's never been such a thing as nothing. It's a figment of the human mind. There's always been something. There's always been a person, the person of God. All right, flight's coming in. There's much more that can be said about all this. But I hope it at least makes the point that if we're shady on our doctrine, like I've been spending a lot of time looking up prophecy because my doctrine on prophecy is weak. And I want answers from God. I want clarity because there's ambiguity here. We've got to get it down sometimes, and don't make the effort to figure it out. You're never going to get it all down. Do your best. All right, you can hear it coming right now, so I got to go.